Well, I started piano when I was 7. I loved it. Um, I stayed with it. And then when I went to Biola University, it was college back then when gas was 69 cents a gallon. And a long time ago, this was in the early 70s. I fell in love with the organ. I wanted to major in theory and composition, but there were so few music majors that were in theory and composition back then. I wanted to write film scores for Christian films, but it just wasn't accommodating there. And so I could still be a theory and comp major and still have a senior recital of my works and so forth, but I fell in love with the organ. And the teacher there, the organ teacher, was Rainer Brown, who also taught composition. So I majored in organ and minored in composition. And but it was always music was part-time. When I graduated and eventually got my master's at USC, I went into teaching music full-time in West Palm Beach, Florida for about 3 years. And then when I came back, I got into computers. So I was in the advertising agency business doing accounting work for about 18 years, and music was part-time. It was playing in church on Sundays, large churches and small churches, playing the organ, and composing was part-time. I mean, it just, I could never get going with composing, although I did write some hymn arrangements and did have some of them performed. I could never really find my voice in composing. And it was because, probably unintentionally, I was trying to mimic other composers, mimic Debussy, mimic Stravinsky. And so I never found my true voice at that time. And of course, the best person to write like Debussy is Debussy, and the best person to write like Stravinsky is Stravinsky, and Mozart, and so on. And I think unintentionally, I was trying to mimic my composition teacher's voice, Rainer Brown at Biola, and the music just didn't go anywhere. And so I didn't really have much interest. It wasn't until I wrote an anthem in the year 2008. It was for a competition, the AGO competition, where they have a competition where you write for a choir and you add the organ. And in this case, they wanted to add also another instrument. And in this case, it was the oboe. And I had 5 verses to write the music to. And the name of it was May Your Life Be Filled with Gladness. And that was a turning point for me. It was only the second time I entered the competition. I don't know how I won.
Because it's a good piece. It's a very attractive piece. That's why.
The 3 judges were Alice Parker, William Bradley Roberts, and Robert J. Powell. And I did have a few dialogues with Alice Parker. And this was just revolutionary to me. I mean, I was in my 50s at the time. And from that, I began to find my voice and realizing I was trying to mimic other people's voices that wasn't mine, and my music wasn't going anywhere. So anyway, I may be talking a little bit too long, but anyway, I sort of found my voice with this anthem. It's never been heard by the CFAMC yet. But anyway, it won the award, and it was premiered in Washington, D.C., and I got to do all this stuff. I got to march in the processional at the National Cathedral and all this stuff, and it was all over my head. But that's what happens. You know, I stayed in composing, but I never really found my voice till that piece. And then from then on, I've been doing a lot of sonatas for organ and other instruments. And mostly neoclassical. It's not very dissonant. It's not very abstract. It's very simple to to hear, to understand. I was trying to do too much abstract stuff before this that wasn't going anywhere and it wasn't really exciting me. And I love hearing abstract music from you gentlemen and you ladies. You know, it's just not my voice. So I pretty much stayed in the neoclassical genre. Listenable music. Um, I like the modes. I like the whole tone scale and so forth, and I'll throw some things in like that. Very diatonic. I like the Dorian mode, so I'll have the tonal center as D and not have any black keys in it, and just go all the way through, and it's fine with me. I like that. But anyway, that's where I'm at right now. I'm doing quite well. I've been able to sign a contract with Universal Edition so that now they can publish my music.
And now since we're going to segue the piece you just talked about, we're going to hear that right now. Okay.
Okay.
You can continue with more things to say, please, later. Okay. We don't want that. We want. Yes, we do want that. Okay.
Tell everyone to mute.
Yes, if you would all mute, that would be good. Especially if you're gargling or something.
Everybody needs to mute.
Here we go. May your life be filled with gladness. Do we have any comments from our prestigious audience?
That was
Very
terrific,
nice.
Bill. I can certainly see why that piece won the award that it did. It's a terrific piece. I love the memorable opening melody that you had there that sort of covered the interval of the major ninth. I like the disparity and texture and the mixed meters that you threw in there to liven things up there. The solo use of soloist was a very nice touch in that central panel. It's just a delightful work.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, very, very well balanced piece, very enjoyable.
Yeah, two thoughts. I think if it was done at a slightly faster tempo, it would have a bit more life. It did sound a little bit plotty, but also if you had a live oboe player, because I think it had to be an oboe stop on the organ. He didn't.
That's correct. Of course, the premier had an oboe.
Yeah. The only thing I might suggest, that run going up to the top E, the way it was done might be a little tricky for the player. It depends on the player. Maybe it has something like a quintuplet or sextuplet going up to it instead of an eighth in the 32nd. That's just a thought. You
Yeah.
could ask the oboe player about that.
I think I had checked with an oboist about that. I know in the premier it was very clean.
Okay. Yeah, have a good player.
It was very clean. But yeah, that was sort of a risk. And I remember the premier. Thank you for your comments.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'll sometimes think of things from a player's perspective, what they need to do to do it. But yeah, it's a nice piece.
I didn't take very long in writing it, and that was another thing that was sort of revolutionary to me. Composing can be very hard. And when I received the lyrics that I was supposed to write the piece for, it's 5 verses. I thought about what a melody would go with that while I was driving in the car and not putting the pencil to paper quite yet, thinking things through. And then when I finally got to writing it, it was actually less difficult than any other composition piece I'd ever written. I think I wrote the whole thing in only just a few days, and I know I was working full time in advertising, so composition anyway was part-time, but it seemed to be almost easy. It was like I knew exactly where I was going, and it was almost like in some cases the music was writing itself. I had not had that type of experience before, and I don't know that I've had that experience since. But I took my time before I put the pencil to paper, and I think that was important. And I knew pretty much the format of how it was going to go. And I checked my first writing of it draft, and I didn't make much editing after it was done. And I don't know, Bill, if we could see the last page of the score, but
I think we can. Give me a second here.
You should be able to show it and just move it back.
Yes, I'm going on the video. Yes, I just. Oops, wrong piece. That's the next piece.
but anyway, I was thinking about how this piece was actually going to end, and the ending can maybe sound a little quirky unless you really see the whole picture. But anyway, the choir's the last words to the listener is, may your life be filled with gladness. And then the organ does a cadenza at the end that at first might sound a little quirky. But when I started that cadenza and writing, I realized that I was writing a 12-tone row.
I thought so.
Walter, you would see it right away. And I didn't know I was doing that at first. It was almost like the spirit was having, I don't know, it was a spiritual experience. But anyway, if you look at the second and the third to the last measures, it's 12 different notes between C and C. And it leaves with sort of a spiritual message. And I wrote down some notes and I uncoded them last night. It says that the choir has just wished the listener, may your life be filled with gladness. And the organ in measures 117 and 118 is adding yes and in all tonalities of life's journey. In other words, may you receive gladness regardless of what tonality you're in life. And that was sort of a postscript that the organ part had with the after the choir's final message to the listener. And it worked well, and apparently the judges didn't dislike it. So I don't know if you can put that up.
I will, and I was just going to say, continuing my play on words, but I'm being serious in making this joke, which is this is a 12, you're talking about a 12-step passage with all 12 notes. So so it all ties together. So I can do that right now. I have it on pause, share screen, share, and now I'm making
I'll make the bad joke. Is it part of a 12-turn recovery program?
well, we
There we go.
they're all in recovery, thanks to Jason.
So I guess I had a couple of thoughts that I'd like to
Could we,
share with you.
Walter, hold on a second. Could we?
Sure.
He was going to talk about this last page. Then we'll hear
Go
from you.
ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I pretty much said everything. The choir's last message is, may your life be filled with gladness. And then the organ has a postscript to that, you know, and you see the 12 different tones there. And I didn't even know I was writing a 12-tone row, the first 7 or 8 of them. And I thought, oh, this might be interesting. It's a 6/8 time, and there's room for 12 notes. So I went ahead and finished the row where the organ is saying yes and in all tonalities of life's journey. The last chord is not in 12 tone. There's only 10 of them there, and there's some of the duplicates. But anyway, there is not a single note in this anthem that I would want to change. I mean, it was just there, and it just happened very, very quickly. And after I got into it, it was pretty much easy writing, and I was just having fun. You can believe that composing can actually be fun. It's fun after it's over, and you've written a piece and you're satisfied with it. But anyway, it has not done well with sales at all. It did at first because there was a reading session on it at the AGO convention in Washington, D.C. in 2010. And the sales were good, and E.C. Shermer was very happy, but nothing really since then. If I go to a new church, the church library, they buy it and so forth. It was performed by my Presbyterian church for just a call to worship, the last section. Of course, it's ABA. And so it's a decent call to worship, starting at measure 88, the last part of it, where you don't have to worry about getting an oboist. And the problem is with most church choirs, they have a hard time with the meter change, the 4/8, the 5/8, and all that, and finding an oboist. And it just has not done well with sales at all.
Well, that frequently or most of the time happened. Does that mean the music isn't any good?
I think it's good.
Of course it's good. So in heaven, everything stays in print.
Yeah.
We can, it's all there, every moment. And so, but with the worldly standards of things is, of course, and it's okay to want to succeed in this world, but there's a greater success. So that's a beautiful piece. If no one ever heard it, it would be worthy anyway. Now, what Walter is going to say is the following.
Okay, I think that's the cue, is it? Or were you going to prophesy? Um, it's interesting the conversations we've had about finding one's voice. And Neil, I've always felt like you had found your voice in everything that I've heard from you. And this is certainly another one of those delightful instances where many notes that seem out of place in a more traditional style are very much in place precisely because they sound out of place. There's an exuberance and a hilarity to the joy and gladness this anthem portrays precisely because the choir is often singing notes that are not in tune with the harmony. Now, that becomes a little bit less obvious when tones start to infiltrate the organ part. But I think it's a marvelous thing. Perhaps you are thinking that all of these are tall tertians, that is, ninth, 11th, and 13th chords. But it still makes it difficult, I would think, but maybe for the choir to find its pitches when the organ is routinely giving a background that is different. But I love it. And yes, that music doesn't do well. I know about that too.
We all do.
But what finding your voice, I hear your voice, but I also hear a lot of Benjamin Britten. His Rejoice in the Lamb has very similar kinds of textures with the organ, very bright, wonderful, clustery sounds at times, very modal often. And some of the recitative-like passages at the soprano and tenor solo are wonderful foils against this for the hilarity. But I guess what really I smile at is you are gradually introducing accidentals, black keys to the normally happy-go-lucky C major, what I would call actually pandiatonicism.
Yeah.
And those black keys, they filter in one by one, but they start having more of a presence. So in a sense, the last three measures of the piece are where the piece was headed anyway, even though the idea of having a 12-tone row to wrap things up may have been the farthest from your mind. There's a certain amazing thing about having all the notes of the universe join in the hilarity, the joy, and the gladness that this anthem portrays. So we can blame Benjamin Britten and maybe to a very lesser extent Arnold Schoenberg as having contributed to your voice. Nevertheless, it is your voice. And for that, we all are glad.
He who compares himself one to another is not wise. So any of us, if it sounds exactly like someone else, it's okay. We're all part of a great creation of God. Music is portion of that creation, and think of all the other composers that we cannot name, whose music is remarkable to hear, and we have never heard it. Now,
Walter,
tell us about your organ. Could you tell us about, somebody said Walter or something, so we can talk some more, but we want to get then to Neil's organ playing and how that is an influence, because his next piece will be seeing him playing the organ. But yes, who was about to speak? Pardon me.
Walter, I just wanted to say too, I have listened to and attended many of Benjamin Britten's operas at the LA Opera. They kind of went on a Benjamin Britten tear, and
For you.
and I've also heard that some people think of Bernstein in that middle section with the recitative and the oboe, and they immediately thought of Bernstein, and I'm a Bernstein Copeland fan. They both died the same year, but it was a double whammy to the American music because I love Copeland and I love love Bernstein.
1990 was a horrible year.
So was
Well-
1968 and 2023.
Yeah.
Horrible years too.
But I did directed research on actually Copeland and Ives, comparing how they used folk tunes in their music. But Copeland he is, I would say, my favorite American composer still, and the Third Symphony is probably my favorite work. But Bernstein, I mean, I've even seen Trouble in Tahiti. I mean, I've seen so many things of Bernstein, and I love West Side Story. And I can understand how someone could kind of hear Bernstein with some of the recitative parts in the middle, and just a beautiful melodic line. And all I can say about the ending is that the spirit led me to write that. That's all I can say, because you are correct. I had no intention of putting that 12-tone row there at the end, but it brings some little giggles. I mean, when it's been performed after it's over, people like, that's cute. I like the way it ended. And
You
It was
also
just a
disproved the
spirit-led
idea
speech,
that
that's all I can say.
12-tone, you disproved that 12-tone music is ungodly. So you had been inspired to
Indeed.
write a roll. I'm serious, actually, and yet not. You were inspired to write a roll, not knowing you were writing one. So there's a room for.
So I'm Jay. I'm pretty new here, but I'm going to be real technical. I would describe the piece that I just heard. I love the word hilarity. I was going to use the words fun and bouncy. And I wondered, as I was listening to that, and particularly as you describe your process in creating it, how much it reflects your personality. Are you a fun-loving, bouncy, jocular type of person?
You probably have to ask the people that are listening right now.
He is.
I'm
He
pretty
is.
much. It really depends. I was introverted, really was. The piece itself is extroverted with that 2A sections, and the middle section is more introverted, more introspective. I think my close friends that really know me will say, that they can sense joy in my life. I'm not going to be the life of the party. Okay. That's just not me. But I have the joy of the Lord in my heart. How I come across outwardly, I don't know. You'd have to ask people that have known me for a long time. That's about all I can say.
Well, even listening to you describe the kind of the surprise of the 12 row at the end, the 12 note at the end, I wondered if you have a little practical joker inside you.
No, I'm not generally a practical joker. Usually the joke will come right out, very obvious, But thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
It's nice to have you with us, Jay, again.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And also Craig.
Hello.
Well, welcome to CFAMC. We're so glad to have you part of us.
Well, thank you.
Neil, could
Actually
you?
popped on because Neil sent
Yes.
the link to get the Zoom, and I wanted a peek inside his world. So I don't
Craig
play.
used to, I'm sorry, Craig, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, I
Craig,
don't play organ. A long time ago, I played cello for a number of years, but it's just really a peek into Neil's world. So
Neil, could you tell us what you were? This is another segue. Could you tell us what you were doing earlier this week at Biola
oh,
and
I-
previous weeks?
well, yeah, in the last few weeks, I've had 2 seminars to the composition majors at Biola on composing for the organ. And there were 14 composition majors. And So I did a seminar, 2 50-minute seminars on composing for the organ. And of course, that's virtually impossible because there's so many things to learn about the organ. But I had a syllabus and I sent it to all the students in advance so they could kind of read it over, read about timbres and ranks and stops and so forth, so they can read it over before I actually showed up. And then I displayed the organ, and then they were to write a score for the organ to me. And the second seminar, I went through the scores, and then I chose the best five, the best that I thought were the top five, and performed them in a concert, a composition concert, Wednesday night. And I'm happy to report that 4 of the 5 composers were young ladies. When I went to school at Biola, there were no women composition majors, but that's the way it turned out. And I was happy to have that. And I was actually pleased at how well it actually went. I actually performed a little better than I thought I was going to, and that usually does not happen. But the pieces were very difficult. Usually when you choose the best 5, they're also the most technically difficult, and that was the case here. But I performed for about 25 minutes, and it was a crowd pleaser because these composition majors had never written for the organ before, none of the 14. And the audience was just amazed. The dean of music was there, Todd Guy, and it was just amazing that this was their first attempt. But in our churches now, many organs have become obsolete, and it's replaced with contemporary bands. And of course, you can worship God with a contemporary band, but there are fewer organists and fewer organs. So many of them, it was all new to them in writing for the organ, and I thought they did a fantastic job.
Now we're going to hear Neil playing organ, which he obviously does all the time. And this is a piece of his called Voluntary Meditation and Toccata, and it's written for trumpet and organ. And can you tell us, do you want to tell us about it after we hear it? Maybe we'll talk about it. Or before.
Let's see. All I can tell you, it was premiered at the Pasadena Presbyterian Church in 2018. Megan Turner has her doctorate in trumpet performance at UCLA. It's been published this year by Universal Edition, Vienna. And that's really about it. It's just, you don't have to think very hard again. It's simple music and hopefully enjoyable to the ear. That's it.
Okay.
I particularly enjoyed the second movement, and definitely hear the Copeland influence on that piece. It came reminded me of Our Town quite a bit.
And Quiet City. I have a question for you, Neil, on that one.
Never mind.
The first two movements, I immediately recognized as the same composer as the choral, that of the choral piece that we had heard previously. And the last movement, at least initially, it didn't strike me as the style of the other two movements. It was much more chromatic. There was whole tone scale usage quite a bit. What caused you to vary the style for that particular movement?
Oh, that's a tough question, really. I really wanted to show what the trumpet could do in different types of styles, and the same thing with the organ. I don't know how to answer that. I myself thought it was more of a unified piece. You know, the three movements, ABA type of thing.
Don't get me wrong, I like that last movement very much as the other two, but I just thought it sounded significantly more chromatic and
yeah,
less tonally focused, less pandiatonic, as Walter
yeah. And of course, the third movement was a toccata, and the first movement was a voluntary, more of a fanfarish type of a thing. So that's about all I can say.
All right, well, fair enough.
Yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I thought that I actually reminded me a lot of your other pieces. It seems like you have a lot of 1, 2, 3 kind of things, where the third movement has something starkly different, and that's where we get a tempo contrast first, second movements of several pieces I've heard of yours. But then between the second and the third, we get more of a scalar contrast or a modal contrast. So reminded me of that. So the music reminded me of. I was thinking, I guess Copeland would make sense. I was thinking Hindemith too. There was a bit of Hindemith and his fourth and fifth that like to resolve at the end, which I thought was really cool. And I'll just say on a side note, it was very neat hearing that piece because it helps reinforce a lot of the advice you had given me about organ writing this past summer. So it's really cool to hear all of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would have thought the last movement, especially toccata, could have been a bit quicker, a bit lighter. It was a little bit dot, 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 dot. It was a little heavy, pedantic sounding. You know, when writing for brass, being a trumpet player, well, not so much a trumpet player anymore, which you did well, to have times where you get the horn off the face. I've seen trumpet pieces or other things where it's just a physical thing. You need to get the horn off the face from time to time. And as far as influences, well, if we remember that, you know, between now and ages past, there's been thousands or hundreds of thousands of composers or songwriters of all levels sharing the same 12 notes. So there's going to be a little overlapping once in a while. You know, it's just going to happen.
Good point. Greg, would you, for trumpet players, do they need to rest more than other instrumentalists if they're doing like a sonata kind of thing like this?
Well, yeah, perhaps, because it's an unnatural physical thing to be bashing a piece of metal on your face. I do remember occasion I wrote a trumpet piece for a friend for an ITG conference. And he asked me when we went through the first draft, can you put a 4-bar rest in here? And at the moment, it wasn't really my vision or whatever, you know. But then I put the 4-bar rest, and then later on, the tables turned, and I was playing the trumpet part. And not only was I really glad that he asked for that 4-bar rest, I actually wish he had asked for an 8-bar rest. But yeah, just keeping things, well, other things in mind when writing for percussion, especially in orchestral. Give the players time to put down the sticks and run over to pick up the cymbals. I've sometimes had to play things where you have to be an octopus to cover all the parts. So just remember, it's human beings doing the stuff. You know, the computers don't need to breathe, but human beings do.
We are now going to hear a piece that if you were at our convention in Minnesota, you heard it read, but this is a even more thoroughly rehearsed, not a reading thing of Neil's String Quartet number 3. And what can you tell us a little something about that, Neil? Or should we just put it on and we'll talk?
I think probably you should just put it on. It's not short. It's 14, 15 minutes. It was premiered in Kwidzyn, Poland last September. The Neil Quartet is just phenomenal. I was there. I got to shake their hand, and I couldn't have asked for anything better. It's neoclassical again sounding. Although I do occasionally take a tangent, the third movement is basically all in 7/8 time, because it's not because I wanted it in 7/8 time. It's because I heard a 7/8 melody, and so I just went with that. So yeah, just go ahead, put it on. It's fine. Thank you.
Number 3.
Very good.
Don't know. Makes you happy to hear that music. It's very nice to see Heather. And Heather, how are you? What's going on in your life? Can you tell us in a minute?
Yeah, I'm not going to take much time, but yeah, I'm enjoying school. So in North Carolina, we're settled in and things are good. And I loved your piece, Neil. I enjoyed all the pieces, but that one was my favorite today. And one of the things I really loved was hearing the melodies come through, whichever instrument had the melody at the time. It just came through so nicely.
it was nice to hear Donald Wilson was not on mute, but in the first movement, at one point I heard him say "very good," and in the second movement he did a like kind of comment. So those are
I apologize for the dog barking.
I did
You
that.
probably heard that. You didn't hear that? That's when I realized I was probably on mic.
I
But
thought that was
anyhow.
just I thought that was just my woofer.
Eh,
Yeah,
oh,
boy. Oh,
all right. I wanted to, can I comment?
please.
Yes, I thoroughly enjoyed hearing a classical piece, basically. I've been going back to classical forms myself, but I've been so dismayed with music nowadays at our new music festival in Bowling Green. It just, everything seems to want to, or everyone wants to be unique, and they end up all sounding alike. So anyhow, I'm prejudiced. I like classical and neoclassical. And so, and see, Ian Guthrie just coined a new term, neo.
Okay,
Very good.
that's fine. Go ahead.
That
Call me that if you want.
that
That's good.
identifies it.
Some of
Neoclassical.
us mice have been playing
Thank-
while has been away, and we're counting on your forgiveness, Neil.
That's fine, no problem.
Yeah, because not that I would name any names, but Dave said that that was stipulated.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
The name that shall not be mentioned.
That's right.
Don't forget the retrograde of that is Pitts.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot you can do with my last name. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, we're far from the pits on this one.
Thank you.
I would like, I put it on, what do we call it? Not apps, whiteboards, notes, or the comment thing. A link to, I asked Neil, what is your favorite, what is your best piece? Or you think? And he said that's his Symphony Capriccio. So if you can see a link for that if you go on chat. Excuse me, that's what it is in chat. It's
We're not seeing it on chat yet, Bill.
Oh, I put it on the very beginning.
Yeah, it is there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me check again.
I did that before we started, actually.
Yeah. The thing is, with these chat, well, maybe this is different. If I would try to copy that somewhere, it just doesn't allow you to do it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you could do Symphony Capriccio and Neil Stipp, and you'll get it that way.
Yeah,
You have the
Okay.
all four movements together. None of them have you don't see a performer in them, but you hear the music.
Mhm.
yeah, if you put Neil Stipp and then YouTube and then Symphony Capriccio.
Okay.
Symphony Capriccio, YouTube, Stipp. It
Whatever.
will
Okay.
play the entire symphony with a photograph of the orchestra that performed it in Moldova. If you put in Symphony Capriccio retransmission on Google, that will take you right to the concert. But of course, and that's a video of the concert, an hour and 15 minutes. And then my symphony is like starting the 34th minute or something like that. If you wanted to see the video of the orchestra play it, but I'm in the middle of the concert.
Yeah, who conducted that?
Mihail Agafita.
Okay.
AGIFITA, I think it is. I met him. Very nice gentleman, an excellent conductor. He conducts in Moldova. He also conducts in Romania and other places.
Okay, I didn't bump into him. There was.
But it's the National Philharmonic of Moldova. It's
Okay, that's not the same as the TV radio orchestra then.
No, it would be
That's a
different.
different outfit.
Yeah, the musicians in Europe are just amazing. I mean, the Neo Quartet that you heard, they looked at every single detail of the music I put down. And Heather, you mentioned about, you know, the different parts coming out when they were supposed to, and that's because they followed the dynamics. Because, you know, if it's accompaniment, it's piano or mezzo piano. If it's the melody, I put mezzo forte and forte, and they observed everything to the detail, and they didn't practice that much. They're just that good, and excellent quartet.
Neil, one of the things that I'm reminded of is Elliot Carter. I think he created 3-string quartets, and wasn't this your third?
It was my third.
Now, do you have a fourth one that we've also heard in times past, or if am I misconstruing it?
No, the uh, the number 2 is only 8 minutes, about half the length of this, but it's the same style. It's just that it was very short and it's on a CD. This one, I think is probably my best, and I haven't written a fourth. I like the strings. I can do quite a bit with them. But I
Tell
play.
us how come. I mean, you're
I,
very successful as a string quartet writing, and not everybody can pull that off.
you know,
It's a daunting medium.
well, in high school, I did play the viola. My
Oh, I
best
did
friend,
too.
my best friend is a violinist, so I was around strings. I think it was my education. You know, I was in orchestras. Was an orchestra for 6 years, junior high and high school, playing the viola. So I heard everything, and I was able to retain um, a lot of the sounds from other composers, including Benjamin Britten. We did the Simple Symphony, okay, and we did Copland's Quiet City, and we tried to do of Copeland, El Salon, Mexico, I think it was, yeah. And these sounds are still in my mind. You know, that's all that you have to do with youngsters, really. And in high school, you put these sounds in their minds, and if they want to compose, they can go off of that. And then uh, college, I played the baritone, brass, you know, in the band. Um, but that's the thing. Nobody really taught me composition. I mean, it was a secondary instrument at viola, but my composition teacher, you know, and you know this, you can teach technique, but you can't put melodies in other people's heads. You can teach technique, and hopefully you can get them to find their voice if they do enough writing. In my case, this is where it didn't happen. I didn't find my voice till I was in my 50s, okay? and but that should be the aim of the composition teacher, I think, you know, to teach technique and go to as many concerts as you can and just infiltrate their minds and then go from there. You can't throw melodies into somebody's head or harmonies. You have to hear them and they have to be retained.
Now that's very telling because, you know, I think I do as well for strings myself because of the very limited viola experience I had. Now, one thing I wish I had done that you did was to actually play in an orchestra. It sounds like the Lord led you in the places He wanted you to be, even way before He gave you supposedly your language. He was developing it in you through a half century of experiences. How beautiful to share that.
Well, it's taken some time and you just have to stay with it. Like I said, I didn't find my voice until my 50s. I turned 70 last month, okay? All of a sudden 70 feels real young to me, you know. It didn't when I was a kid. but it's taken that
Preach it.
long. It takes that long sometimes.
I'll be 70 next April, so I
Oh,
appreciate
okay.
the guiding light.
Yeah.
And there's somebody else who, if she's on, will be 90 very shortly. And that is Jerry Casey.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just see her name there. But
Happy birthday, Jerry.
at any rate, we will be waiting in excitement for what God will teach you next, Neil. Okay. You recognize those words?
Sure I do.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, Ray Whitney, who wrote those words, I looked her up last night. I thought that she had gone on to be with the Lord, but it only has her birth date of 1927. So I think she is still living at the age of 96. And she was sitting next to me at the premiere in Washington, D.C. for that because we wanted to experience the premiere together because I couldn't have done it without her. And I think that she is still living. She's been a hymn writer for decades.
For next month, and I will send in messages about this also, we will have, like we did last December, I think we had Robert. Robert, didn't you do a piece last December? Did we have a piece of yours for Christmas?
We did a trio of Christmas pieces from different composers.
Were you one of them?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good. I've heard a lot of composers in CFAMC with a listening page. It's about 220 or something we've done. That's quite a bit. And at any rate, if you have any music, and particularly if you haven't been on a listening room, please email me and send me something, and we'll have a few composers on again for Christmas. I also wanted to put one more thing in here, which is that this is, of course, called a listening room. And earlier today, for some reason, this came up on my YouTube. There was a video, and maybe you've seen this before, this kind of thing, where people who could not hear could hear for the first time, and you see the reactions. And I wanted to end by playing 2 minutes of that little program. It's very remarkable how we are able to hear. And of course, we have a wonderful, talented man in our group who is Ken Davies, who is nearly deaf and nearly blind. And you've heard his music. So if you ever want to give a call to his wife, Judy, his mind is fine. He's able to do things physically, but you know, it's a real gift that we can hear. And because Jesus talks about hearing quite a bit in a deeper sense. So let me put that on for 2 minutes, and then I won't play the whole thing, of course. But I just thought it would be kind of a good thing to share.
Prepare to be moved to tears as we capture the emotional and unforgettable moments when deaf individuals hear sound for the very first time. This was the moment Kathleen could hear clearly for the first time in her life, and it was the cutest.
Can you hear me over this side?
Don't look at him.
Can you hear what I say?
Yeah.
Does it sound like it's coming out of the left?
Yeah. It does. Say something.
Stop crying.
You hear, Dad?
Yeah.
This was Billy Kate's first time hearing Mom and Dad, and it instantly made her stop crying.
Even when these are inner ears, I can do a little change to the programming.
Billy. Hi, Bill.
Billy. Hi. Hi, pretty girl.
What are you doing? Billy, what are you doing? Hi. Hi. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Hi. Hi, how are you?
A deaf girl could hear her mother's voice for the first time ever, and she was so happy.
It's true. I don't even see the difference. A little bit brighter. Oh gosh.
Hear my voice? Oh. Hopefully that's a good thing. Hooray!
It was a long journey.
And I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop there because but it's just how we're gifted to be able to hear, we're able to hear music. And of course, something to me remarkable also is in choirs that God made male human beings be approximately an octave lower than women human beings. So the result is we get a much larger range in a choir. Imagine if the human species were all in the same vocal range, you would be a lot less a cappella choral writing. So we are fearfully and wonderfully made.
I've seen similar videos when you see people see for the first time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can certainly resonate with the hearing one because my hearing is quite attenuated from what it was a dozen years ago. I need hearing aids to converse in a situation like this. Although I, fortunately, by God's mercy, don't need it to hear music. Don't need them in to hear music. But I may be headed in the direction of total deafness. I don't know what God's will is in it, but I certainly can appreciate the video that I just saw on that basis.
I was deaf from when I was 2 to when I was 4, and that really touches me quite deeply.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Didn't know that. Yeah.
Now you do.
And what happened when you were 4? What happened when you were 2? What happened when you were 4? Could you tell us briefly?
I can only tell you that when I was 4, I had a tonsillectomy that bloodied the whole place in the hospital. And then I went to the Sandpiper School to learn how to talk all over again because I had already learned to read. I was mispronouncing words all over the place, just the way I read them. So it's been a process.
Wow.
Wow.
But somehow the Lord took care of it.
Yes, that's amazing.
It's Heather.
Well, it is and where I live, it's 4:35. Where Neil lives and Walter and other people, it is what, 1:35. And so we look forward to our next program. It's very nice to hear. I haven't visited it. I don't know if I'm allowed to. There's, of course, a women's group from CFAMC that's been getting together and I guess listening to music. Have you been involved with that, Heather?
I go when I can.
Okay.
So not not as much as I'd like, but I go when I can.
Now, if we
It's
want
nice.
to do,
There were several people there. I did get to go this week, and I think there were 7 of us at the meeting, which was pretty good.
Heather
But
and
Jerry can probably speak to that much more than I can.
Jerry, can you unmute and speak? Are you there?
We've been having a great time. A lot of sharing and finding out a lot more about people and what they were doing and working on and how they came to where they are and then listening pieces. But most of the time we've been able to have score and music, which really helps to follow the score. But not always. But it's just been a great time. Us gals getting together.
Well, Jerry, it's about
Jan's done great organizing it.
Jerry is about to become 90. That is more numbers than a Steinway piano has keys. So that's quite a achievement. And if we sang right now to Jerry on Zoom, happy birthday to you, and if we all try to sing it together at the same time, it will be very contrapuntal. Could we end by doing that?
Why not?
Happy birthday to you. Happy
birthday
birthday to
to
you.
Happy
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 birthday, dear Jerry.
Jerry.
Happy
birthday
birthday
Day
to
to you.
Thank you
May
very
God bless
much. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to my big 9-0 with my family. My son's coming in from Arizona on Monday, and we'll celebrate Thanksgiving. And then on the 28th, we'll celebrate my older son and his wife's 42nd wedding anniversary. And then on the 30th, we'll celebrate my 90th. So we're going to be celebrating all over the place. But I'm just so very thankful that to still be able to work and do and have the health that I have. I'm just very, very thankful.
Great to see you, Jerry.
And to all of you, God bless you on Thanksgiving, and give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, and his mercy
His
endures
love endures forever.
forever. Mercy.
And
Probably
thank you to all. Thank you to all who were able to participate in your comments. I appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you, Neil, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you all. Have a good weekend and a good everything.